All right, guys, the Merc here. Big topic today. Big topic. First of all, let me just welcome you guys all to Talk Back World. If you've not been here before, make sure you do the right thing. Because this is where minds get freed. It's where minds get freed. And those who've been here for a while know that this is where minds get freed. And there's no schedule to a talk back session. There's no schedule. You catch me when you catch me, you catch the Mac when you catch him, you catch half of when you catch him, put out videos once in a while. Sometimes the whole year goes by, no videos get put out. And the topic of the day, which I'm going to put up on the screen soon, is testament to what Talkback is all about, because guys have made some calls very, very, very early. Let me just put some things here. I want to put something on the board. Okay. Topic is big today, guys, because as you know, there's John Boyega came out and made some very, very, very strong statements. And we're going to talk about it, okay? Because I think, it was actually a trending topic. And I think it's something that it sort of goes beyond just a Star Wars thing. I think it goes into many, many other areas of entertainment, film, and television. And some of the points that this guy made were very, very important. So I'm going to just begin by, we're going to cast our minds back 5 years ago. Cops, I don't know whatever the joke will say. Anyway, going to cast our minds back 5 years, where The Force Awakens came out. Now, I implore you guys to go and listen to what Talkback said when Force Awakens came out. In fact, I implore you guys to go and listen to all the Talkback videos back then, 5 years ago, when Force Awakens came out. It wasn't that we didn't wait till The Last Jedi came out to say some of these things. We said this stuff when Force Awakens came out. And it really just pertained to, obviously, look, as Star Wars fans, we were, obviously disappointed by a lot of things. We also foresaw a lot of things because of some scenarios that we saw playing out. We were like, uh-oh, this doesn't look too tasty. That was Force Awakens. This doesn't look too tasty. But specifically about the character of Finn. Because for us as Talkback guys, and our own heritage, it was a very big deal that Finn was in the movie. That John Boyega, a Nigerian, black guy, was getting a prominent role in a Star Wars film, which was like the first. People keep talking about Lando. What did Lando do? What did he really do? Let's be real. Like, he didn't do that much. To all intents and purposes, it was sort of a token character. It wasn't like Lando Calrissian was like a massively pivotal. Yes, he betrayed Han Solo. We know that. But exactly, he betrayed Han Solo. That wasn't cool. So I'm not going to be looking at Lando Calrissian and talking about how, oh my goodness. Hold on a sec, I just received something here. Okay. I'm not going to be looking at Lando Calrissian and be saying that, okay, that is the benchmark for minority or black characters in the Star Wars universe. Come on, guys, let's get real. So when we saw the poster of the Finn character of Force Awakens, and Finn was on the poster holding a lightsaber, that was actually a very, very big deal. It was a very big deal, and people were excited. You were like, oh my goodness, this is incredible. We've got like a black guy who's going to be a Jedi. That's what you thought. Like, he was the first face you saw in the trailer. He was holding a lightsaber on the poster, and you're like, now when I think back, we know what really ended up happening, but I'm like, why the hell would anybody who isn't a Jedi be holding a lightsaber? You know what I'm saying? Like, it just doesn't even make any sense. Not only would he be holding a lightsaber, but you put that on the poster? That's really weird. So there is no way you're not going to think that. And I actually find it hard to believe that they didn't know that. So you willfully deceived the fans, because I was one of those guys who felt deceived, because I was like, my God, are you kidding me that this guy isn't a Jedi? When the trailer came out, I thought that, oh, this is even more interesting than I thought it was going to be, because he's an ex-stormtrooper that then discovers the path to the light or something, and then will end up becoming a Jedi and fighting against the empire, the new empire. That in and of itself, listen, we know what we've said about the fact that the story was so similar to the original trilogy. The fact that you even have stormtroopers and all those things is a problem, you know, it is an issue, but you know, it is what it is. But within the realms of that, that is what you thought was going to be happening. Anyway, John Boyega comes out, and you know what? Let me even pull up this thing. Let's even have a look at what he says. You know, we're going to have a look at what he says. Let's share this. Yeah. Okay. All right, guys. Let's have a share of this. Okay, we're going to read this. Like, so he says that when black men grow out their hair, it's a very powerful thing, he says. Culturally, it stands for something. In fact, when black men grow out their hair, it's a very powerful thing, he says. Culturally, it stands for something. In fact, it was what Boyega saw as attempts to control his appearance, allied with the smothering feeling of his packed diary leading into 2017 that caused him to question his place in the sausage machine of big-ticket movie making, that made him wonder if there was actually room for someone who looked like him to exist on his own terms in an industry generally built to white standards and white norms. In the continued afterglow of that first franchise defibrillating Star Wars film, he continued to notice a stylist he'd hired when he first started doing press, cringing at certain clothes I wanted to go for. The hairdresser, who had no experience of working with hair like his, but still had the guts to pretend, and he decided that he could no longer grin and bear it like a graceful competition winner. Yeah, true. During the press of The Force Awakens, I went along with it, he notes. And obviously at the time, I was very genuinely happy to be a part of it. But my dad always tells me one thing: don't overpay with respect. You can pay respect, but sometimes you'll be overpaying and selling yourself short. With the Lucasfilm branded elephant in the room acknowledged, it is even harder to ignore. This is Boyega's first substantial interview since finishing the franchise, his first since last year's The Rise of Skywalker tied a highly contentious, hurried ribbon on the 43-year-old space saga. How does he reflect on his involvement and the way the newest trilogy was concluded? It's so difficult to maneuver, he says, exhaling deeply, visibly calibrating the level of professional diplomacy to display. You get yourself involved in projects and you're not necessarily going to like everything. But what I would say to Disney is, do not bring out a black character, market them to be much more important in the franchise than they are, and then have them pushed to the side. It's not good, I'll say it straight up. He's talking about himself here, about the character of Finn, the former stormtrooper who wielded a lightsaber in the first film before being somewhat nudged to the periphery. But he is also talking about other people of color in the cast, Naomi Aki and Kelly Marie Tran, and even Oscar Isaac, a brother from Guatemala, who he feels suffered the same treatment. He is acknowledging that some people will say he's crazy or making it up, but the reordered character hierarchy of The Last Jedi was particularly hard to take. So yeah, guys, before I even get into that deeper, that's some pretty serious stuff the guy's putting out on the table, guys. You know, it's some pretty serious stuff, you know. The truth is, we already knew this, you know, so like for anybody who's like a fan of Star Wars who was watching these films, we've been talking about this for years. So I think that the weird thing about this situation is the fact that somebody from the film is saying it directly with no sort of sugarcoating or coded messaging or wink wink type things that people generally do when they have these sort of topics. Anyway, let's keep going. Like, you guys knew what to do with Daisy Ridley. You knew what to do with Adam Driver, he says. You knew what to do with these other people. But when it came to Kelly Marie Tran, when it came to John Boyega, you know fuck all. So what do you want me to say? What they want you to say is, I enjoyed being a part of it. It was a great experience. Nah, nah, nah. I'll take that deal when it's a great experience. They gave all the new ones to Adam Driver, all the new ones to Daisy Ridley. Let's be honest, Daisy knows this. Adam knows this. Everybody knows. I'm not exposing anything. I mean, that's sort of the point I'm making with this, is that, you know, like, I don't think this is that controversial a thing that he's saying, because so many people said this online and like in commentary about this. It's not new. I think the real conundrum with a thing like this is that I think Kathleen Kennedy and the people at Lucasfilm use the diversity thing as a crutch, you know, obviously, like, you know, this is all the people attacking Star Wars is because you're misogynist, you're racist, you're bigoted, you're this and that. And when the Kelly Marie Tran thing happened and she allegedly left Instagram or Twitter, it was sort of painted as these racist fans have pushed this actress of color offline because of her involvement in this franchise. We must all protect her. The irony of it is that when this sort of article comes out and this interview comes out, it paints a very different picture of it's sort of saying that you're pandering and you're patronizing us, but then using our presence as sort of a cushion, so to speak, for what you're doing. Does that make sense? Whereas in reality, you're not actually doing real diversity, you know. Anyway, let's keep going. He's on a breathless role now, breaking his long corporate omerta to touch on the unthinking, systematic mistreatment of Black characters in blockbusters. They're always scared. They're always freaking sweating. And what he sees as the relative salvage job that returnee director J.J. Abrams performed on The Rise of Skywalker. Everybody needs to leave my boy alone. He wasn't even supposed to come back and try to save your shit. Even though he also acknowledges that it was an amazing opportunity and a stepping stone, that he has precipitated so much good in his life and career. He's palpably exhilarated to be finally saying all this. But to dismiss these words as merely professional bitterness or paranoia is to miss the point. His primary motivation is to show the frustrations and difficulties of trying to operate within what can feel like a permanently rigged system. He's trying really to let you know what it feels like to have a boyhood dream ruptured by the toxic realities of the world. I mean, guys, you know, some serious stuff, man. At the end of the day, we knew this. Like, a lot of people complain. I mean, the whole race, like, you twisted the entire franchise, everything, to try and make this character the greatest creation and entity that has ever existed in the universe and in any film that has ever been made before. She was capable of literally everything. Everybody's storyline suffered to support that storyline. But I think his point is that there's characters of color suffered more and suffered the most. It's actually too difficult to argue with that, because when you watch those films, I mean, listen, before he even said any of this stuff, me and Have Hope, we've been so, Finn was a non-entity by the second movie. A guy that was the first thing you see in the Force Awakens trailer. By the second movie, they just sent him off with some new character as a sidekick. And I think the most important thing that I've always said, and I've been, you know, quote the Muck here, because the Muck has been saying this since the first review that Talkback did on this. Excuse me. The love story says everything. The fact that Finn and Rey didn't have any romance in the first film. She kisses him on the head and calls him friend to make you know, and just to confirm to everybody that don't be worried. This guy and this girl are not going to get together. Like, they just wanted to just confirm that, because I've never seen something like that before. In any film, I've never seen a situation whereby two supposed romantic leads, at the end of the film, she kisses the guy on the forehead and calls him friend, my friend. Never seen that before. I mean, hell, in the original Star Wars trilogy, they were having incest. Like, they were so bold with it that they were actually having an incestuous situation going on with Luke and Leia. Because they were like, it's so obvious that we have to have them have something, obviously. So that was the first thing. By the time you get the second movie, you bring in some random new character who is also a minority to be his love interest, just to emphasize how much he is not going to be getting with the white lead actress, star of the universe, you know. We said all of this before. By the third movie, you give him another person. So Rose is now out, and they brought out this other black lady who was on that planet with the horses or whatever they were, as a pseudo love interest for him, because they shared like a similar past experience. I think they were both former stormtroopers or whatever. And you're just like, they're doing everything. Like, this guy will be with anybody else but Rey. In the meantime, Rey now has a romantic relationship, or kisses and falls in love with a genocidal maniac who has killed millions of people, maybe billions, but millions of people, kidnapped her, tortured her, killed her friend. That is the guy that you go with, instead of the guy that has been running after you for 3 films, shouting your name, risking his life, almost getting killed for you. He's your friend. That is all you've got to know. Like, for me, his whole interview thing is what it is. I'm just talking as like a Star Wars guy who's watching a movie. And I'm watching this movie and I'm like, it feels like these guys are going over and beyond to try and make sure that these two guys don't get together. For what reason, I'll let you decide. But I'm just thinking, like, I'm watching, I'm like, wow, you guys are doing everything you can to make these guys not get together. Because it's obvious that these are the two, that's the relationship. And if anything, Finn is trying to save you from this psychopath, Kylo, this maniac. Nothing that happens in the course of these 3 films give you any reason to understand why Rey would be attracted to this person, or why Kylo would be attracted to her. There's nothing that you're seeing that you're like, oh, that was a moment that you're like, you know, like with Luke and Princess Leia, that they had so many. I mean, for goodness sake, this guy came and saved her when she was captured, you know, and she said, I don't, but just even when they were swinging, when she has to hold on to him and they swing across that thing, there's so many moments in that relationship that by the time you get to Empire Strikes Back, where there is this romance possibility between Luke and Leia, you completely sort of accept it, even though you then find out that they're actually related, which was a bit weird. Han Solo and Leia was inbuilt. Like, you could see, you know, they were fighting, just typical stuff. Which is what I thought they were doing with Finn and Rey, because I'm like, they were squabbling in the beginning. I'm like, this is like textbook. This is how it's supposed to be. So somebody needs to explain that to me. I think it's just weird that he's actually taking J.J. Abrams out of the picture, because I'm like, wait a minute, but J.J. Abrams made Force Awakens. And there are a lot of the issues with your character, the foundations of them were laid in Force Awakens. Why in the name of all that is good on earth are you holding a lightsaber, but you're not a Jedi? Or you're not trying to be a Jedi? That was in Force Awakens. You were just a janitor. Why, in the name of all that is good, are you in sanitation? Like, you're a stormtrooper. Why did they demasculate you and make you a sanitation worker? So even from that beginning, where exactly are you supposed to go? And in that movie, why is Rey kissing you on the head and calling you friend at the end of the movie? And you got trashed by Kylo Ren within 2 seconds, but she's beating the hell out of this guy. Both of you have no training, but you're the guy who gets laid out and put in a coma. That wasn't in Jedi, Last Jedi. That was in Force Awakens. So I'm a bit confused about, like, listen, man, I mean, mates, at the end of the day, like, a lot of the problems were actually laid in the first movie. So even if somebody better than Applehead did the second movie, they would still have to contend with the foundation of your character. You got Sam Collins in here. Let me see, what are we saying? Finn really should have been the main character of the trilogy. A Stormtrooper turned Jedi would have been an interesting original story for Star Wars. Boyega was done that. Yeah, no, look, that's obvious. That's obvious. You know, I mean, that's a very interesting story. He should have been the main character. That's a very interesting story. Let's see what else we got here. I think the reason Boyega defends JJ is because he gave him the job in the first place. So I guess he has some loyalty there. I agree with that. I agree with that. I think that's the reason. It's like, you know, you're not going to slate a guy that is the reason you even got the role. You know, I mean, this guy picked you, you know, so for whatever it's worth, man, it's like, you can't. And to be honest, out of all the 3 movies, the first one is the one where you had the most to do. But I actually still believe that a lot of the problems with your character were laid in that first film. So I'm not sure that things would have gotten that much better for you. And he also made the 3rd movie. You know, Finn could have had more to do in Rise of Skywalker. You know what I'm saying? Like, you didn't have to have a nothing wrong. You could have fixed it. Why couldn't Finn end up with Rey in Rise of Skywalker? You hadn't built things to such a degree that he had to end up with, or rather, Rey had to end up with Kylo Ren. It didn't have to happen that way. So maybe there is actually more behind this than we know. Maybe John Boyega knows more, and he can't really come out and say some things that he probably knows. Maybe it really wasn't J.J. Abrams' like decision to have those kinds of things happen to his character. You know what I mean? It might not have. Look, I don't know, because I mean, look, it's very hard for me to even defend this guy, because I'm just thinking, like, you had Force Awakens and you didn't let Princess Leia, Han Solo, and Luke Skywalker meet before you killed Han Solo. You see, so for me, it's hard for me to even defend it, because I'm like, that's like a basic. That's one of the benchmark things that has to happen. They've got to meet. There's got to be a scene where these guys meet each other again. So the fact that you didn't let that happen, I'm like, everything else is suspect, man. Everything else is suspect. Like, I can't defend the rest of this stuff. Anyway, guys, look, that's all I've got on this topic. I'm going to get out of here. Bear Spielberg in. Talk back. As I said, catch me if you can. Catch me if you can. Maybe here, maybe there. Who knows? Catch me if you can.